Let's jump right in. If you want to learn efficiently and deeply, you are absolutely in the right place. Today, we're breaking down the mental models of Naval Ravikant. He's a highly successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur and investor, and his philosophies on life, which you might have seen compiled in works like the Almanack of Naval Ravikant, well, they've literally rewired how people think about success. We're going to unpack his very specific operating system for building a good life, and we'll be relying directly on the frameworks from our source material. I want to start right here with this core question. Why is it that some people seem to build fortunes while they sleep, while others are out there grinding 80 hours a week just to get by? We've all seen it, right? The traditional narrative tells us that hard work equals success, period. But Naval's framework completely flips this linear way of thinking on its head. It suggests that getting rich isn't really about how hard you pull the lever, it's actually about what kind of lever you're pulling. Now, before we get too far into the weeds, let's be crystal clear about what this actually is. We are exploring a philosophical framework here. This is Naval's personal perspective on how the world works, drawn from his own life and readings. It is absolutely not some universal financial fact. It is definitely not a guaranteed method for becoming a millionaire, and it's certainly not personalized financial advice. Instead, think of this as a lens. It's a set of mental models you can use to examine your own trajectory and your own decision-making.
So a totally crucial point here is understanding the stark difference between wealth, money, and status. According to our sources, Naval argues that society constantly conflates these three, but they are radically different games. Wealth is the ultimate goal. Wealth consists of assets that earn while you sleep, like a business, a piece of software, or investments. Money, on the other hand, is really just how we transfer that wealth and our time. And status? Well, status is just your place in the social hierarchy. It's a zero-sum game, meaning for you to go up, someone else has to go down. Naval explicitly warns against getting trapped in these status games, because people playing status games usually gain their rank by attacking people who are playing wealth creation games. We want to focus on creating assets.
And that leads us perfectly to this incredibly hard-hitting quote. You're not going to get rich renting out your time. Think about it. If your earning is directly tied to the hours you work, honestly, no matter how high your hourly rate is, your earning potential is fundamentally capped. There are only 24 hours in a day. To achieve true financial freedom, you've got to break that link between your time and your income. You need equity. You need to actually own a piece of a business or an asset. This reality builds right into Naval's foundational two-word formula for wealth creation: productize yourself. Now, I know it sounds a little like marketing speak at first, but let's break it down. Productize represents specific knowledge and leverage. Yourself represents your uniqueness and accountability. When you combine these pieces, you shift from being just a replaceable cog in a machine to a unique asset that can scale infinitely. To really wrap our heads around this, we need to unpack these components, starting with specific knowledge. Naval's definition of specific knowledge is absolutely fascinating. This is not the stuff you learn in a standard university degree, because think about it. If a skill can be easily trained, it means someone else can be trained to replace you. Specific knowledge is found by pursuing your innate talents and your genuine curiosity. It usually sits at the very edge of new fields, stuff that is just now being figured out. It's a skill set that feels like absolute play to you, but looks like grueling work to everyone else. Which brings us to this really powerful idea: escape competition through authenticity. When your career is built on your specific knowledge, that totally unique blend of your obsessions, your talents, and your experiences, literally nobody can compete with you on being you. Competition inherently comes from copying. So if you're authentically leaning into what makes you uniquely capable, you essentially eliminate direct competition. You carve out a monopoly of one. But listen, having specific knowledge just isn't enough on its own. You have to take ownership. And this is where accountability comes into play. Naval defines this as taking business risks under your own name. It's having reputational skin in the game. If you fail, well, the failure is on you. But if you succeed, society rewards you with responsibility, equity, and leverage. You have to be willing to put your name on the line if you want to reap those outsized rewards. And leverage? Man, leverage is where the magic really happens. We are living in an age of nearly infinite leverage, but our brains just aren't evolved to comprehend it. Our sources divide leverage into two distinct categories: permission-based and permissionless. Permission-based leverage means someone else has to say yes. For labor, someone has to agree to work for you. For capital, someone has to actually give you money to invest. But permissionless leverage, that is the absolute game changer of the modern era. Things like code and media do not require a gatekeeper. To really cement this concept, let's compare them side by side. Labor is the oldest and, frankly, the weakest lever. It just scales linearly. Capital, money working for you, that was the great lever of the 20th century. But look at code and media. Software, podcasts, books, videos. These have a zero marginal cost of replication. That means it costs you absolutely nothing extra to distribute your product to 1 million people instead of just one person. They scale infinitely, and you don't need anyone's permission to make them. Let's ground this abstract business theory in a super relatable example: the baker's leverage. Imagine a talented baker. If she relies on her own labor, she might bake, say, 100 loaves of bread a day. If she hires a team, that's labor leverage, she might bake 1,000. But her output is still totally tied to human hours. Now, what if she uses her specific knowledge to record a baking masterclass? That is media leverage. She creates it once, and it can be downloaded 100,000 times while she sleeps. That is exactly how you generate value way beyond your direct working hours. So, if leverage can multiply a single action infinitely, what becomes the most valuable skill you can have? Judgment. When you have a massive lever, pushing it in the wrong direction is disastrous, but pushing it in the right direction? That changes the world. Naval defines judgment as wisdom applied to external problems. It's understanding the long-term consequences of your actions. In an age where a piece of code can run globally in an instant, clear thinking, sound decision-making, and a demonstrated track record are truly worth their weight in gold. And you apply that judgment over the long term. This brings us to a foundational rule in Naval's philosophy: compound interest. Now, we usually think of this in terms of finance, right? But Naval applies it to literally everything. All returns in life come from compound interest. Your wealth, your relationships, your knowledge, your reputation. The key here is to play long-term, iterated games with long-term people. You have to let your efforts multiply over decades rather than constantly chasing short-term gains. Okay, so let's say you do it. You've productized yourself, you've built leverage, you've accumulated wealth. But what happens when you finally achieve it? This is the major pivot point of Naval's philosophy. We move from the external mechanics of wealth creation directly into the internal landscape of the mind. Because let's be real, having all the leverage in the world means absolutely nothing if your internal state is just pure chaos. Notice how Naval reframes a deeply human pursuit here. He argues that happiness is not a destination, it's not something you obtain externally, it is a highly trainable skill. He views happiness as a default state of presence. It's simply what appears when your mind finally stops insisting that something is missing from your life. It's the absence of unchecked desire. To navigate all this, Naval relies on a philosophy he playfully calls rational Buddhism. It's this fascinating blend of strict scientific realism, so understanding physics, evolution, and game theory, combined with the timeless Eastern wisdom found in things like the Bhagavad Gita or the teachings of Jiddu Krishnamurti. The ultimate goal? Living in the modern world while dropping your rigid identity, reducing the shoulds in your life, and accepting the age-old premise that unchecked desire is basically a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. So what does this actually look like on a Tuesday? Let's look at these elements of a rich life. It's highly practical stuff. Be present in the moment. Structurally, ensure you earn with your mind and your judgment, not by renting out your time. In terms of priority, value your physical health first, then your loved ones, and then your mission or your work. And socially, seek out peer relationships. Naval actively avoids status hierarchies. He doesn't want to be above anyone, and he sure doesn't want to be below anyone either. So bringing this entire progression together, it all starts with discovering your specific knowledge, that authentic thing you are uniquely curious about. You then apply permissionless leverage to it, using code or media to multiply your effort. You take accountability to gain ownership and equity in what you build. And ultimately, this sequence doesn't just result in wealth, it harmonizes into true freedom. Freedom to control your time, and through trained presence, freedom from your own mind's anxieties. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Take a hard look at your own daily routine today. Are you actively building assets, knowledge, and leverage that earn and compound while you sleep? Or are you caught in the trap of just renting out your time? It is a huge paradigm shift that takes time to fully implement. But as the source material makes clear, understanding it is the very first step. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.